loves, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are starting a new series, or rather we're starting a series that I've kind of been doing in my head all year long. Now I'm going to start it with you. This year I challenged myself to read 75 books, which might not sound like a lot to some of you, it might sound like loads to others, but that was what I thought. Okay, I think I might be able to do this. I think I might be on track to do this. I might be lagging behind just a little bit, but it is something that I'm going to carry on next year, because reading to me is the most chilled. It's when I'm at my most relaxed. I love reading. I love losing myself in stories. The usual genres that I tend to read are like crime thrillers, detective series, that kind of thing. But then we love a bit of smut and fantasy. Yes, we do. And then this last couple of years, I have really come out of my comfort zone and I have been reading non-fiction books. And particularly this year, I've been reading a lot of books about narcissistic parents, emotionally mature parents, CPTSD, all of the things that I have experienced myself that I want to become better educated on, so psychology style books, and I found them insanely useful. So I'm going to share with you what I have read this month, and every month I'm going to do a video where I share with you what books I have read that month as part of my challenge. Now next year, if I manage to do 75, maybe I can challenge myself to do some more. If not, we're going to stick with 75 and see if we're going to achieve 75, because I think it is doable. Maybe. Also, as a tip, if you are somebody who uses Kindle a lot, which I do, out of the 6 books that I have read this month, I have done 5 on Kindle. And if you're somebody who reads your Kindle quite a lot, then download the Alexa. I'm checking I haven't set mine off. Have I set yours off? If I have, you're welcome. Download the Alexa app and write in Kindle Library. Download the Kindle Library app on your phone as well, and then it will read it to you. Yes, it's an automated voice, but it is amazing for times when you're driving, if you've gone for a walk. I do it while I'm cooking dinner, and I find it especially useful for those quite hard-going books. I'm reading one at the moment which will go into the December reads, and it's all kind of CPTSD, childhood trauma, and it's really hard going. So rather than sit there on an evening and find it quite, I'll listen to it throughout the day, and I can find I can do it in manageable chunks. Storybooks as well, I've been doing it with them, but generally I tend to read one sort of fact, like learning book, whilst I'm also reading one fiction book. Does that make sense? So I've got like my, this is purely for enjoyment, and then this is for self-development, and I can pick and choose at what times I feel like I need to jump into the self-development, because reading for me is so relaxing. As I said, I want something that I can chill out with, but if I've had a long day and I've had a hard day, I don't want something that's going to hit me quite hard. I want something that I can escape into, so I'll pick up my fiction book. Whereas if I'm feeling a bit more mentally able, I'll pick up that self-development book. So let's jump in to book number 1. Okay, look guys, I would love to start this series on a positive note, but I can't, and it's this book's fault. Okay, if I'm giving it stars, I'm giving it 2 out of 5. It's called The Therapist by Helene Flood. It is translated from Norwegian, okay, and I do wonder if perhaps it was some of the way in which it translated, but it felt clunky. The storyline is centered around Sarah, who is a therapist. Her husband goes missing under mysterious circumstances. He has called to say that he has arrived, and his friends have also called to say he's never turned up. So where is he? Where has he gone? And without giving any spoilers, it follows her path of discovery of what happened to him, involving obviously the police. And I don't know, I expected more drama, I expected more depth, and it just felt very clunky. She was not likable at all. In fact, there wasn't a single character in the book that was likable, and I think that makes it quite difficult. I think I like to like someone in the book, or I like to, at least if I don't like them, then maybe they've got a good sense of humour, or maybe there's just something about them that engages your interest. Maybe you like to hate them, I don't know, but I just felt very meh about her, and I didn't really think that the story was particularly surprising. I'd sussed it from the first 2 or 3 chapters. I was like, okay, I know what's going to happen here. I know who done it. I know what's going on. I know what the husband has done. I know what she's done. It just felt very obvious and very clunky. Didn't do it for me. 2 out of 5 stars. From the negative to the, oh my goodness, you need to read this, it's amazing. Okay, I have been reading the DCI Ket series. I think this is book, I want to say book 11 or 10, could be wrong. I do need to check that and I will put it on the screen. But this, Knock Knock, the stories with DCI Ket, which is by Alex Smith, are so detailed. They've got humour, they've got a bit of silliness, they've got a really good, each book has an individual story, and I love this with crime stories. Each book has an individual crime story and then a larger crime story that has kind of threaded all the way through the series, and I love that. I like the character developments. This particular one was a really interesting story, and it ended on such a cliffhanger. If you've read any of the books, and I like 10 out of 10 recommend them if you are into your crime and detective thrillers, but if you've read any of the books, then you will know that there is like a theme running through all of them, which is known as Hollenbeck. That's not giving any spoilers, but the Hollenbeck theme that is running through all of them kind of comes to an end, or kind of comes to a resolution in this book and the one after this book. This particular story was quite gruesome in parts, and I think a lot of the Alex Smith's books tend to be quite gruesome, which doesn't particularly affect me or bother me, but I just find the way that they humanise the detectives and the way that they thread through the silly things that make you laugh as you're reading quite an in-depth, detailed story is just fantastic. So 10 out of 10 for this one. Coffee break. Look. Okay, I couldn't help myself, right? This is the follow-on book from the one that I've just recommended, King Rat. This one, out of all of the Alex Smith's books, this one felt a little bit far-fetched, but then if you've ever watched things like Hostel, you've ever watched things like Escape Room, the Escape Room movies, any of those kind of things, and you've enjoyed them, this one is definitely going to be up your street. This takes DCI Robert Ket and finds him trapped by Hollenbeck, and he's been taken somewhere where he now has to find his way out, and the rest of the team is left scrambling to try and rescue him. They're doing everything that they can. There's betrayal, there's murder, there's mayhem, there's DCI Ket warring with himself, and we love a good detective that wars with himself, okay? He is warring with himself because he wants to be the good guy. But is he a good guy? Not really. I mean, he takes the law into his own hands sometimes, and I do find that in crime books, that they take the law into their own hands, and quite often the murderer, the baddie, the horrible villain of the story ends up as opposed to in jail. And that happens a lot in the DCI Ket books. So if you prefer a resolution that's perhaps a bit more realistic, a bit more true to life, where the person gets arrested and then it follows through, maybe the DCI Ket ones are not for you. But I just loved the sort of self-torture, and I loved everything about it, to be honest. So this is the most recent one, and I think Alex Smith is currently writing the next in the series. I worried that this was going to be the last in the DCI Ket series, because it completely wrapped up the Hollenbeck storyline, which is threaded all the way through, and I thought, that's it, it's gonna be the end of it all, because if it's wrapped it up neatly, and as I say, in each book there is their own story with then that bit that threads through, I was convinced that we were going to be done for, and it was going to be the end. I was a bit gutted. I get quite attached to characters. I do, I get attached, and then they go and end the series, or they kill one off, and I have to deal with trauma. Okay, speaking of trauma, let's move on. Book number 4 I read this month is this one here, How to Kill Your Family by Bella Mackie. Now this, you might well have seen, has gone viral on TikTok. It's been in all of the bestsellers, and honestly, it's been well deserved. I can see there being a sequel, and I would read it. It was such a good read. The main character, not particularly likable, but in a humorous way. You can see her point of view. She's sarcastic. She's a bit of an anti-hero. You find yourself actively rooting for her, and yet she is the one committing the murders. So the storyline is featured around the main character and her life, and what she is doing is picking off family members who are part of this really big, rich, globally famous family. Think like Jeffrey Bezos, if he had a daughter who came out of nowhere and was like, you know what I mean. So that's the storyline, and she's just so sassy with it. She's really sassy. This caught some flack for being fatphobic, and I had messages from people when I said how much I liked it on my Instagram. I save all of my books, so up to book number 54 I think at the moment, and I've got them all saved in a highlight on my Instagram stories. But when I said that I 10 out of 10 recommended this, I thought it was a brilliant book. It was something different. I like a detective series, and this is just a one-off standalone, and I really enjoyed it. And she's not a detective, it was purely from her point of view, and she's the villain. And when I recommended it, people messaged me and said, but this has had quite a lot of kickback because of fat phobia in it. And I would put to you that she is not a nice person. Grace, who is the main character, she's murdering people. You're holding her to too high a moral standard if you think she's not going to be fat phobic. I think there is a lot of everything phobic in it. None of the characters are particularly nice people. The people she's killing off, see ya, good riddance. And her, also a very damaged individual who comes out with some not so nice stuff. So I think you have to read it with that in mind, and not take it as the author is saying that this is accurate. But there are fatphobic comments in it and remarks in it, but then there's also homophobia in it, and there's also racism in it, and there's also classism in it. So I think if you're going to hyper focus on that, then that's going to spoil your enjoyment of it, because she is the one saying things like, oh, they go to the gym because, you know, skinny is the new strong according to the Instagram models, which is just a marketing ploy to get you to be thinner. The whole point is that she's scathing, and that she's angry, and that she's bitter, and whether you agree with her or not, that's her whole vibe, is that she hates everything that these wealthy people represent, and that's why she's killing them off. So I 10 out of 10 recommend it, and I would just take with it a pinch of salt. Don't judge me, okay? It's a good job I don't have any older family members alive or speaking to me, because this could be difficult to explain. Make Me by Summer O'Toole. Now, it's pure smut. It came up on TikTok a couple of times, and then somebody recommended it to me on Instagram as a, if you like smut, well, this is for you. This was my smut edition of the month, and it's naughty. If you like, it's very stereotypical, predictable. There is a lot of smut in it. There's a bit of murder, and there's a crime to solve in it as well, which is, I suppose, a little bit different. But generally speaking, bad guy kidnaps woman, woman falls in love with kidnapper, kidnapper is perfect man for her, they have sex a lot, crime gets solved. That's it. There isn't any substance to it whatsoever. I don't know what you were expecting. Look at it. I don't. Moving on. Well, this took a bit of a turn, didn't it? From smut to Dear Daughter of Narcissistic Mothers. Dani Morrigan is one of my absolute favourite authors when it comes to the self-help books that I've been reading. She specifically writes about narcissistic mothers dealing with their daughters, and it's been I would say a fundamental part of healing my experiences with my own mum, and you can check over on my channel where I've got different videos about my experience with a narcissistic mother and my experience of living with toxic parents. But I think for me, this particular book wasn't as good as her You're Not Crazy, It's Your Mother book. I found that one much more in depth, whereas this one kind of is like snippets. You could read one letter and then move on to the next thing. I had a lot of it on audio, and again, I found it really insightful. What I would say to anybody who has toxic parents or deals with a toxic mother and really struggles and wants to understand more about narcissism and how toxic parents work and their own experiences and how it shaped you as an adult is be mindful of how you're feeling and what kind of mood you're in, because some of the things that I would read were, it was literally like she'd got a camera on my life, and I think that can feel really exposing, and it takes the breath away. One of the passages that she'd been writing about was mothers who insist essentially, or who make you feel you can't say no, even if they've put it to you in a way that makes it sound like it's your decision. On being there for the birth of your children, and how damaging that can be, and how that can spoil your relationship, especially if it's a narcissistic mother. And I've spoken before about my experience with my mum being involved in my middle child's birth, and just the way she wrote it as a really common thing that happens with covert narcissistic mothers was like, I didn't realise that that was so accurate to my life. It was literally like she'd taken myself and my mum and just banged us on the page and and it was just mind-blowing. So I think being mindful of what kind of mood you're in, and knowing yourself that if it's stressing you out or it's triggering you in any way, that you can take a break away from it and come back to it. But if you struggle with a toxic parent or you struggle with a narcissistic mother, then Danu Morrigan is the author for you. As far as estrangement goes, she briefly touches on no contact, but again, like 99.8% books out there that deal with low contact, no contact, or toxic parents, there's so little about estrangement and what it means and what it feels like to be estranged. And that's really frustrates me. So I'm still looking, and I do have as part of my series, I do have a video on some of the books that have helped with my estrangement. But I do think that this book is great if you are dealing with a narcissistic mother, and to help you learn more about her and how to continue to deal with her. If you're looking for something specific about estrangement, good luck. And that's it. I read 6 this month, which, to be honest, if I'd averaged 6 every month, then I wouldn't quite make it to my 75 target, but I would get very, very, very close. And I'm still quite a way off it. I need to read, like, I think about 12 books in December to be able to get there, or maybe even more, maybe like 15 books to get there. But I am making my way through some books, and I'm gonna keep trying, and if I don't make 75 this year, then I'm gonna try for 75 books next year, and I will let you know at the end of December exactly what I think of December. If you would like to keep up with my 75 book challenge, then you can find all of the books that I have read throughout this year over on my Instagram highlights, where I have saved every single one with a little snippet about how I felt about them and what I thought was a winner and not. See you soon.